Senator Luján.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Here's a thought, Mr. Morrison. Why don't you just eliminate seat belts from cars, eliminate backup cameras from cars? Hell, stop making them out of metal. Make them out of plastic, and let's find the cheapest car that we can sell to the American people, and we'll modernize the fleet, and more people will die. I don't know if my colleagues know this, but there was not a provision snuck into a piece of legislation that's going to save people's lives in America. You and I met. I asked the same questions to Secretary Duffy. I was surprised to learn from him that his wife also survived a horrible crash. I don't know if you know this, Senator Moreno, but I survived a head-on car collision in my early 20s when I was driving home from a basketball tournament because a guy was drunker than shit and drove right into me in front of my church, in front of the place where my grandfather is buried. I'm a person of faith like you. Somebody helped save my life that night. 10,000 people die a year in America because we want to talk about self-driving cars. Hell, I can go to states right now and jump in a cab and there's no driver. That's safe? And we can't install technology that 9 auto manufacturers have already filed patents. This legislation worked. The markets are reacting. In Europe, you can already get in a car that has this technology available, not just to tell if you're drunk, but to tell if you're impaired. The technology exists. 14 Tier 1 and Tier 2 suppliers. Look, I'm not an auto person, but I understand that those are the folks that the major auto manufacturers work with to get technology in vehicles. They can tell if you're impaired. Hell, go to an auto show. If I sold cars, I'd go to several auto shows to see what the latest and greatest is and get in those cars, and you'd be surprised how much technology exists today. These are not the questions that I planned, but when someone is suggesting that legislation was snuck into a bipartisan bill, I don't think Rick Scott is a liberal member of this body. He was my partner. Senator Capito, who also sits on this committee, has been a driver of this legislation. I've been proud to earn the support of my colleagues from across the country to get this done. We've got to find a way to do it. So my question to you, Mr. Morrison, is this piece of legislation that is called the HALT Act, it's the Honoring the Abbas Family Legacy to Terminate Drunk Driving. Who lost a family member to a drunk driver? There's rules currently pending at the Department of Transportation. I'm very disappointed that under Secretary Pete Buttigieg, under President Biden, this was not finalized. It was bipartisan. We worked on it bicamerally, bipartisan in both chambers and got this done. We negotiated with the auto manufacturers. Everyone was at the table. Someone from Mothers Against Drunk Driving is actually in this room. I hope all of us take time to sit down with them and find out how many people are dying in our states so that we can all get behind this technology. Can I get your commitment, sir, that you will make progress on moving forward the existing rulemaking pursuant to the HALT Act?
Absolutely. And as I said when we met in your office, and I enjoyed our meeting, I thought it was a productive meeting. I'm not in the building now. It is a day one priority of mine to get in there and get a sense of the state of the technology. That's the technology that DOT has been working on for years, but not just the state of that technology, but the state of the technology that's being developed elsewhere. That is something that
I appreciate it. I mean, that's all we can ask for. There should be no question that existing technology works. And some people are actually driving cars that do this stuff. Already. It's working. Another issue that I care about deeply is ensuring that trucks have side underride guards to prevent cars, pedestrians, and bicyclists from being crushed underneath. As a result, according to NHTSA, the cost of installing side guards exceeds the benefits. Unfortunately, to reach this estimate, NHTSA makes assumptions in their cost-benefit analysis that excludes whole categories of preventable deaths of vulnerable road users such as pedestrians, bicyclists, and motorcyclists. I don't understand that. I mean, if it's going to be studied, it should be studied. And then an answer should result based on whatever the research is. Yes or no, will you commit to counting pedestrians and bicyclists as preventable deaths for vulnerable road users in the cost-benefit analysis and any future rulemakings on side underride guards?
I will work with the economists with the NHTSA to make sure that everything appropriate is being considered. I'm not familiar with that particular study that was issued, but it's something else.
I appreciate that. Mr. Barrs, in New Mexico, we see firsthand the dangers that come with heavy freight traffic on highways, especially along I-40 and I-25, the two major arterials in our state, where my constituents have raised real concerns about safety. Truck crash deaths are up more than 60% nationwide since 2009, including nearly 5,500 lives lost just last year. What steps will you take as the administrator to make sure the FMCSA is doing everything it can do to reduce crashes and protect drivers and families on our roadways?
Senator, thank you very much for the question. Roadway safety being top priority for me and my career. As I mentioned in my open statement, working closely and with our MICSAP grants, there are law enforcement officers in your state, making sure they're doing the aggressive traffic enforcement that needs to be done. Also going and doing the inspections that need to do and try to do preventative concerns, finding those violations well before they happen so we can prevent those crashes from happening during a regular routine inspection is critical.
Appreciate that. Mr. Chairman, I have other questions. I'll submit them into the record. I thank you for the time. I just hope we can find some common ground on public safety. I heard like my colleagues say that that's something Democrats and Republicans agree on. Do we or don't we? It's time to put up or shut up when we get these rules in place and we're to choose to save the American people or we're not. That's what it's going to come down to. And I hope that we can find common ground to get this done. It's not easy to talk about almost dying. Sometimes things happen for a reason. And I guess that I've learned from this president, if God gives you another chance, you better do something with it. And I'll be damned if I'm not going to do something about it. Thank you for the time, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Ben Ray Luján of New Mexico responded firmly to President Trump's nominee for National Highway Traffic Safety Administrator, Jonathan Morrison, after Morrison accused a bipartisan bill of covertly including a technology aimed at detecting impaired driving. Luján, drawing on his personal experience, expressed his frustration over the issue, asserting that safety features, like the technology being discussed, are crucial to saving lives. He likened the debate to the absurdity of eliminating basic safety features in vehicles, such as seat belts or backup cameras, to cut costs while increasing the risk of fatalities. In a passionate statement, Luján shared his personal story of surviving a head-on collision caused by a drunk driver when he was in his early 20s. He emphasized how, in the face of such accidents, technologies like the one in question could potentially save countless lives. 10,000 people die a year in America because we refuse to embrace life-saving technologies, Luján remarked, pointing to the existing technologies already being utilized in Europe that detect impaired driving. These technologies, he argued, are a key part of addressing the problem, and it was high time to move forward with them in the U.S. Despite bipartisan support for the legislation and the involvement of auto manufacturers in the discussions, Luján expressed his frustration that the Department of Transportation under Secretary Pete Buttigieg and President Biden had not yet finalized rules for the impaired driving technology. He urged Morrison to support the existing technology and to commit to advancing the rulemaking process to ensure that these measures are fully implemented and enforced. Luján also raised another issue of concern: side underride guards on trucks. He questioned the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, for excluding vulnerable road users, such as pedestrians, cyclists, and motorcyclists, from its cost-benefit analyses related to the installation of side underride guards. Luján made it clear that this oversight needed to be addressed, and he called for a thorough re-evaluation to ensure that the safety of all road users is considered in future decisions. Continuing his push for better road safety, Luján urged the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, FMCSA, to do more to protect the people of New Mexico, particularly along major highways like I-40 and I-25. Citing the sharp rise in truck crash deaths since 2009, he demanded more proactive measures, including aggressive traffic enforcement and routine inspections, to prevent crashes before they occur. In his closing remarks, Luján underscored the importance of bipartisan cooperation when it comes to public safety. He called on his colleagues to put political differences aside and take decisive action to pass the necessary legislation to protect American lives. He concluded with a poignant reflection on the importance of life and second chances, stating, "If God gives you another chance, you better do something with it."